Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to close your eyes for just a moment. I want you to think about the last time someone made you feel small. The last time someone's words cut so deep that you questioned your own worth. The last time you ignored that voice in your gut telling you to walk away because you were afraid of being alone. Keep your eyes closed. Feel that moment, because tonight we're going to talk about something that could change the entire trajectory of your life. We're going to talk about the words that should make you turn around and never look back. Open your eyes. You see, I've learned something in my journey from a small town in India to stages around the world. Something that took me years of pain, tears, and sleepless nights to understand. The right words can build you up so high that you feel invincible. But the wrong words, the toxic words, the manipulative words, they can tear you down brick by brick until you don't even recognize yourself anymore. And here's what breaks my heart. So many of us, especially women, we've been conditioned to accept less. We've been taught to make ourselves smaller so others can feel bigger. We've been told that love means sacrifice. And sometimes we sacrifice so much of ourselves that there's nothing left. Tonight is about reclaiming your power. Tonight is about understanding that walking away isn't giving up. Walking away is choosing yourself. And if a man says these 5 things to you, you need to understand that walking away isn't just an option. It's a necessity. But before we dive into these 5 phrases, I need you to understand something about my own journey. Because I'm not standing here as someone who has always had it figured out. I'm standing here as someone who has stumbled, who has fallen, who has questioned everything about herself, and who has had to learn these lessons the hard way. When I was 17 years old, I won Miss World. Can you imagine? 17. I stood on that stage. They put that crown on my head and the world was watching. Everyone thought I had it all figured out. Everyone thought my life was perfect. But what they didn't see were the nights I cried myself to sleep. What they didn't see was the constant criticism about my appearance, my accent, my worth. What they didn't see were the people who tried to make me believe I was lucky to be in their presence, lucky to receive their attention, lucky to be given opportunity that I had actually earned. I remember sitting in my tiny apartment in Mumbai looking at myself in the mirror and not recognizing the person staring back at me. I had achieved what millions dream of, but I felt empty. You know why? Because I had started to believe what others were telling me about myself. I had started to accept treatment that I should have walked away from. I had started to think that maybe I needed to be grateful for crumbs when I deserved the whole damn bakery. And that's when it hit me. That's when I realized that the most important relationship you'll ever have isn't with your partner, your family, or your friends. It's with yourself. And if you don't respect yourself enough to walk away from toxicity, no crown, no achievement, no amount of external validation will ever fill that void inside you. So let's talk about the first thing. The first phrase that should make you walk away immediately: you're too sensitive.
Oh, this one.
This one is insidious because it sounds so simple, so harmless. But let me tell you what's really happening when someone repeatedly tells you you're too sensitive. They're invalidating your emotions. They're telling you that your feelings don't matter. They're gaslighting you into believing that the problem isn't their behavior. It's your reaction to their behavior. I want you to think about that for a second when someone hurts you and then tells you, you're too sensitive for being hurt. What are they really saying? They're saying, my comfort is more important than your pain. They're saying, I don't want to be held accountable for my actions, so I'm going to make you believe you're the problem. I've been in rooms with powerful people who have tried to use this tactic. I've had people tell me, I'm too sensitive when I've called out inequality. Too sensitive when I've demanded respect. Too sensitive when I've refused to accept less than I deserve. And you know what I learned? The people who tell you you're too sensitive are usually the people who aren't sensitive enough to understand the impact of their words and actions. Your sensitivity isn't a weakness. Your ability to feel deeply, to care intensely, to be affected by the world around you, that's not something to be ashamed of. That's your superpower. The world needs more people who feel, not fewer. But there's a difference between being sensitive and being in a relationship where your feelings are constantly minimized. I remember when I first moved to America to pursue my career here. I was 21 years old in a completely different country trying to navigate a system I didn't understand, facing rejection after rejection. And there were people who would tell me I was too sensitive when I talked about the racism I experienced, the stereotypes I had to fight against, the doors that were slammed in my face just because of where I came from. You're too sensitive, Priyanka. That's just how the industry works. You need to toughen up. But here's what I realized. They didn't want me to toughen up. They wanted me to shut up. They wanted me to accept the unacceptable and smile while doing it. And I made a choice. I chose to honor my sensitivity. I chose to use it as fuel to create change rather than as a reason to diminish myself. So if someone is constantly telling you you're too sensitive, ask yourself this: are they saying this because you're genuinely overreacting to small things? Or are they saying this because they don't want to take responsibility for how they're treating you? 9 times out of 10, it's the latter. And that person, they need to go. The second thing that should make you walk away immediately is this: you'll never find anyone better than me. Can we just pause and appreciate the audacity of this statement? The sheer arrogance. When someone says this to you, what they're really saying is, I'm going to make you believe you're so worthless that even my mediocre treatment of you is better than you deserve. This is manipulation at its finest. This is someone trying to cage you with your own insecurities. They want you to believe that you're so flawed, so damaged, so unworthy that you should be grateful they're even with you. And the worst part, it works. It works because many of us already have insecurities. Many of us already question our worth. And when someone we care about confirms our deepest fears about ourselves, we believe them. I want to tell you a story. When I was in my early 20s, I was in a relationship with someone who would constantly remind me of my flaws. Every time we had an argument, every time I stood up for myself, I would hear, who else is going to put up with you? Who else is going to deal with your career, your travel, your ambitions? You should be thankful I'm still here. And you know what happened? I started to believe it. I started to think that my dreams were burdens, that my ambition was a flaw, that I needed to make myself smaller to be lovable. I would cancel meetings. I would turn down opportunities. I would apologize for wanting more from life because I was terrified of losing someone who had convinced me I was lucky to have them one day. I was offered an incredible opportunity, a role that could change my career, but it meant traveling for 3 months. And when I told this person about it, the response was, if you leave, don't expect me to be here when you get back. No one else is going to wait for you like I do. You'll never find anyone better than me who will tolerate your lifestyle. I sat with that for days. I cried. I lost sleep. I almost turned down the opportunity. Almost. But then something inside me snapped. I realized that anyone who truly loved me would celebrate my success, not use it as leverage against me. I realized that better isn't measured by how much someone is willing to tolerate you, but by how much they inspire you to become the best version of yourself. So I took the opportunity. And yes, that relationship ended. And you know what? It was the best decision I ever made. Because I learned that being alone is infinitely better than being with someone who makes you feel alone. I learned that you will absolutely find someone better than a person who tries to diminish your light to make themselves feel brighter. Listen to me very carefully. You are not a burden. Your dreams are not too big. Your standards are not too high. And anyone who tries to convince you that you should settle for their poor treatment because you'll never find better is someone who is terrified that you'll wake up one day and realize that you already are better than what they're offering. The third thing, and this one is particularly dangerous. If you really loved me, you would. This is emotional blackmail dressed up as a love language. This is someone using your feelings for them as a weapon against you. And it's one of the most manipulative tactics in the book because it puts you in an impossible position. Either you comply with what they want and prove your love, or you refuse and carry the guilt of apparently not loving them enough. If you really loved me, you would quit your job. If you really loved me, you would cut off your friends. If you really loved me, you would change everything about yourself to make me comfortable. Do you see what's happening here? Love is being used as a bargaining chip. Love is being weaponized. And real love, genuine love, doesn't do that. Real love doesn't demand that you sacrifice your identity, your relationships, your dreams, to prove its existence. I grew up watching my mother navigate this exact dynamic. My father was a doctor, a respected man in our community. But he had very traditional views about what a woman's role should be. And my mother, she was educated, talented, had dreams of her own. But again and again, I would hear, if you really love this family, you would stop being so selfish. If you really love Demi, you would understand that my career is more important. And I watched her shrink. I watched her dreams get put on hold indefinitely. I watched her become a supporting character in her own life story. And I promised myself that I would never let anyone do that to me. I promised myself that I would never confuse love with loss of self. When I started my career, there were people who couldn't handle my success. There were people who were uncomfortable with my independence. And I heard variations of this phrase over and over again. If you really loved me, you'd make me your priority. But here's the thing they didn't understand. I could make someone a priority without making myself disappear. I could love someone deeply without loving myself less. True love elevates you. True love supports you. True love says, I love you and I want you to chase your dreams. I love you and your success doesn't threaten me. I love you and I will never make you choose between me and yourself, because I understand that you loving yourself is what makes you capable of loving me. If someone is constantly using, if you really loved me as a tool to manipulate your decisions, they don't actually want your love. They want your obedience. They want control. And that's not a partner. That's a prison guard. Now the fourth thing is subtle but so damaging. You're lucky I'm not like other guys. This statement is usually accompanied by a list of the terrible things this person doesn't do. As if not being abusive or cheating or lying is some extraordinary achievement that deserve constant praise and gratitude. You're lucky I'm not like other guys who would cheat on you. You're lucky I'm not like other guys who would hate you. You're lucky I'm not like other guys who would leave you. First of all, being a decent human being is the bare minimum. It's not an achievement. It's the starting point. You don't get a medal for not being terrible. And when someone constantly reminds you that you're lucky they're treating you with basic respect, what they're really doing is setting the bar so low that you're afraid to expect anything better. This phrase is designed to make you feel indebted. It's designed to make you overlook all the ways they are falling short, because at least they're not doing these other terrible things. It's like someone saying, you should be grateful, I'm only neglecting you emotionally because I could be doing so much worse. No. 1,000 times no. You are not lucky to be in a relationship where someone isn't cheating on you. That's not luck. That's the absolute baseline of what you should expect. You are not lucky to be with someone who doesn't abuse you. That's not a privilege. That's your right. I'll never forget sitting with a friend who was in tears over her relationship. She was telling me about how her partner never listened to her, constantly put her down in front of friends, made all the decisions without consulting her. But when I suggested that maybe this wasn't healthy, she said, but Priyanka, he's not like other guys. He doesn't cheat. He comes home every night. I should be grateful. And my heart broke. Because she had been conditioned to believe that the absence of the worst possible behavior was the same as the presence of love. She had been convinced that she was lucky to have someone who treated her with bare minimum decency. I took her hands and I said, you deserve more than someone who doesn't cheat. You deserve someone who makes you feel cherished. You deserve more than someone who comes home every night. You deserve someone who makes coming home feel like coming home. You deserve someone who doesn't compare themselves to the worst examples to make themselves look good. And you do too. All of you listening to me right now, you deserve more than the bare minimum. You deserve more than someone who constantly reminds you how much worse it could be. Because when someone truly values you, they're not comparing themselves to terrible examples to look good. They're striving to be better every day. Because you inspire them to be. If your partner. Selling point is at least, I'm not as bad as these other people. That's not love. That's settling. And you, my friend, were not put on this earth to settle. And now the fifth thing. The one that might be the most dangerous of all, because it's often said with a smile sometimes. Even in front of other people, disguised as a joke. You couldn't survive. Why? Tout me. This one makes my blood boil. Because it's the ultimate form of control. It's designed to make you dependent. It's designed to erode your confidence. in your own abilities until you genuinely believe that you are incapable of functioning without this person in your life. You couldn't survive without me handling the finances. You couldn't survive without me making the decisions. You couldn't survive without me telling you what to do. Let me tell you something. You are more capable than you know. You are stronger than you believe. You are resilient beyond measure. And anyone who tries to convince you otherwise is someone who is threatened by your potential. When I decided to move to Hollywood, I had people tell me I couldn't survive here. You couldn't survive without Bollywood. You couldn't survive in America. You don't understand the culture. You don't have the right accent. You don't have the right look. You couldn't make it without someone guiding you, protecting you, speaking for you. And I'll be honest with you, there were moments I believed them. There were nights I lay awake thinking maybe they were right. Maybe I was being naive. Maybe I was in over my head. Maybe I couldn't survive without the safety net of what I knew. But then I did something radical. I bet on myself. I decided that even if I failed, even if I fell flat on my face, at least I would know that I tried. At least I would know what I was capable of. At least I wouldn't spend the rest of why life wondering what if. And you know what I discovered? I could survive. More than survive. I could thrive. Every obstacle that was supposed to break me made me stronger. Every rejection that was supposed to defeat me made me more determined. Every person who told me I couldn't do it alone became fuel for proving that I absolutely could. I built a career in a country where I knew no one. I started a production company. I became a global ambassador for major brands. I used my platform to advocate for causes I believe in. And I did all of it by betting on myself when everyone else was betting against me. No. I'm not telling you this to boast. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something crucial. The person who tells you that you couldn't survive without them is the same person who is terrified that you'll discover you can. They need you to believe you're weak because your strength threatens their control. And here's the really insidious part. Often, these people will actively sabotage your independence. They'll discourage you from pursuing education or career opportunities. They'll criticize your friends and family until you're isolated. They'll control the finances so you're economically dependent. They'll make every decision so you forget how to trust your own judgment, all while telling you it's for your own good, that they're protecting you, that you need them. But protection that comes at the cost of your autonomy isn't protection, it's imprisonment. I want you to imagine a bird in a cage. The person who put the bird there might say, I'm protecting you from predators. You couldn't survive out there. The world is dangerous. You need me. And after enough time, the bird might start to believe it. The bird might forget that it has wings. It might forget that it was made to fly. But here's the truth. That bird was always capable of flight. That bird was always meant for the sky. The cage wasn't protection. The cage was the predator. You are that bird. And if someone is trying to convince you that you couldn't survive without them, they are the cage. And it's time to remember that you have wings. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but Priyanka, what if I really do need help? What if I'm not as strong as you? What if leaving really would be too hard? Listen to me. There is a world of difference between choosing to be with someone because they add value to your life and believing you can't function without them. There's a difference between partnership and dependency. In a healthy relationship, two people choose each other every day. They support each other. They help each other grow. But neither of them needs the other to survive. They want each other. They choose each other. But they don't need each other in a way that's suffocating or controlling. And yes, leaving is hard. I'm not going to stand here and tell you it's easy. I'm not going to pretend that walking away from someone you love, someone you've invested time and energy and emotion into is simple. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but you know what's harder? Staying, waking up every day and losing a little more of yourself. Looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person staring back at you. Living a life so small that you forget you ever had dreams. That's harder. That's the slow death of everything that makes you you. I've had to walk away from people I loved. I've had to walk away from opportunities that looked good on paper, but felt wrong in my soul. I've had to walk away from versions of myself that I had outgrown. And every single time, it hurt. Every single time, I questioned whether I was making the right choice. Every single time, I was scared. But every single time, on the other side of that fear, I found freedom. I found growth. I found myself. And here's something Nobody tells you about walking away. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know exactly where you're going or what you're doing. You just have to know that where you are isn't where you're supposed to be. You just have to trust that you deserve better. You just have to take the first step. One of the most powerful moments in my life came when I was sitting in a meeting with producers who were trying to box me into a stereotype. They wanted me to play the same character over and over again. The exotic foreigner, the sidekick, the token diversity hire. And they said, this is the best you're going to get. You all be grateful for these opportunities. You couldn't survive in this industry if you're too picky. And I sat there and I felt that familiar fear creeping in. The fear that maybe they were right. Maybe I was being too demanding. Maybe I should just be grateful for any opportunity. Maybe I couldn't survive if I said no. But then I thought about my younger self. The girl from Bareilly who dared to dream bigger than anyone thought possible. The teenager who stood on that Miss World stage and believed she could do anything. And I thought, what would I tell her? Would I tell her to make herself small? Would I tell her to accept less than she deserves? Would I tell her that survival means giving up on her dreams? No. I would tell her to stand up. I would tell her to walk away. I would tell her that she is capable of creating her own opportunities. And that's exactly what I did. I walked out of that meeting. And I walked into creating my own production company where I could tell the stories I wanted to tell. Where I could create roles that reflected the complexity and diversity of real human experience. Where I could prove that you don't have to choose between success and integrity. Was it scary? Absolutely. Did I have moments of doubt? More than I can count. But I survived. More than survived, I thrived. And so, will you? Because here's what I've learned after all these years, after all these experiences. After all the times I've had to choose between comfort and growth. The pain of staying in the wrong place is always greater than the pain of leaving. Always. The temporary discomfort of walking away is nothing compared to the permanent damage of staying somewhere that's destroying you. And I need you to understand something else. When you walk away from toxicity, you're not just saving yourself. You're showing everyone watching you that it's possible. You're giving permission to your friends, your family, your children to value themselves enough, to demand better. I think about the messages I get from young women around the world. They tell me about the relationships they've left, the standards they've raised, the dreams they've pursued because they saw someone like them doing it. And it reminds me that our choices don't just affect us. They ripple out into the world. They change the narrative for generations to come. When you refuse to accept someone telling you you're too sensitive, you teach the next generation that feelings matter. When you walk away from someone who says you'll never find better, you teach the next generation to know their worth. When you stand firm against emotional blackmail, you teach the next generation that love doesn't come with conditions. When you demand more than the bare minimum, you teach the next generation that they deserve everything. When you prove you can survive without someone who tried to make you dependent, you teach the next generation that they are capable of anything. Your life is not just your own. Our choices are not just about you. You are part of a bigger story, a bigger movement, a bigger revolution of people who are refusing to settle, refusing to shrink, refusing to accept less than they deserve. And let me tell you something about the people who say these 5 things. The ones who tell you you're too sensitive, that you'll never find better, that you need to prove your love, that you should be grateful for their bare minimum effort, that you couldn't survive without them. These people are operating from their own pain, their own insecurity, their own fear. Hurt people hurt people. Insecure people need to make others feel insecure. Scared people try to scare others into staying. I'm not saying this to excuse their behavior. I'm saying this so you understand that their treatment of you is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their wounds. But here's the thing, you are not responsible for healing someone who is hurting you. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You are not obligated to stay in a situation that's destroying you just because you understand why someone is broken. Compassion is beautiful. Empathy is important. Understanding is valuable, but not at the cost of your own well-being. Not at the expense of your own mental health. Not at the sacrifice of your own dreams and dignity and self-respect. You can have compassion for someone and still walk away. You can understand someone's pain and still refuse to be tea. Air punching bag. You can love someone and still love yourself more. And that's not selfish. That's survival. I want to talk to those of you who are sitting here thinking, but what if I'm the problem? What if I actually am too sensitive? What if I really wouldn't find better? What if I'm not trying hard enough to make it work? First of all, the fact that you're questioning yourself like this tells me that you're probably not the problem. People who are actually toxic rarely have this level of self-awareness. They rarely question whether they're the issue. So the fact that you're wondering, the fact that you're examining your own behavior, that already tells me something important about your character. But let me give you a litmus test. A healthy relationship should make you feel more yourself, not less. It should expand your world, not shrink it. It should build your confidence, not erode it. You should feel safe to express your feelings without fear of them being invalidated. You should feel supported in your dreams, not guilty for having them. You should feel like a partner, not a possession. If your relationship is making you feel smaller, scared, confused, constantly walking on eggshells, questioning your own perception of reality, then the problem isn't you. The problem is the relationship. And I know some of you are thinking about the good time. You're thinking, but when it's good, it's so good. There are moments when I feel so loved. There are times when everything. G is perfect. I hear you. I understand. But a relationship shouldn't be a roller coaster where you're only happy at the peaks and miserable in the valleys. A relationship shouldn't require you to endure abuse or manipulation during the bad times just to experience kindness during the good times. Kindness shouldn't be a reward for putting up with mistreatment. Kindness should be the baseline. And those good moments, they're not as special as you think they are when you realize that in a healthy relationship. Those good moments are the norm, not the exception. You shouldn't have to cling to breadcrumbs of affection when you deserve a whole feast of love. I think about the relationships I've seen crumble around me. Friends who stayed too long in situations that were destroying them. Family members who sacrificed their happiness for the illusion of stability. Colleagues who dimmed their light because someone couldn't handle their shine. And you know what all of them have in common? When they finally left, when they finally chose themselves, every single one of them said the same thing, I only wish I had done it sooner. Not a single one said, I regret leaving. Not a single one said, I should have stayed longer and tried harder. Not a single one said, I was wrong to demand better for myself. They regretted the time they lost. They regretted the piece of themselves they gave away. They regretted not trusting their gut sooner. But they never regretted choosing themselves. And that's what I want for you. I don't want you to look back 10 years from now and think about all the time you wasted in a situation that was never going to change. I don't want you to look at old photos and not recognize yourself because you've lost so much of who you are. I don't want you to have regrets about staying. I want you to have pride in leaving because walking away takes strength. It takes courage. It takes faith in yourself when everything around you is telling you to stay. It takes believing in a future you can't yet see. And that, my friends, is the definition of bravery. I've stood on stages around the world. I've received awards and accolades. I've achieved things that the girl from Bareilly never could have imagined. But you know what I'm most proud of? The times I've walked away. The times I've said no. The times I've chosen myself even when it was terrifying. Those moments didn't come with trophies or applause. Those moments were quiet. They were private. They were painful. But they were transformative. They shaped me into who I am today more than any achievement ever could. And I need you to know that you have that same strength inside you. You might not feel it right now. You might feel weak or scared or trapped. But it's there. It's been there all along. You just need to believe in it. You just need to trust it. You just need to act on it. Walking away doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're refusing to accept defeat. Walking away doesn't mean you failed. It means you succeeded in recognizing your worth. Walking away doesn't mean you're alone. It means you're choosing your own company over someone who makes you feel lonely even when they're right next to you. And here's the beautiful thing about walking away. Once you do it once, it gets easier. Not because leaving stops being hard, but because you learn to trust yourself. You learn that you can survive uncertainty. You learn that you are capable of creating your own happiness. You learn that the only permission you need to change your life is your own. I remember the first time I said no to a major project because it didn't align with my values. I was terrified. I thought I was making the biggest mistake of my career. I thought I would never get another opportunity like that. I thought I was throwing everything away. But you know what happened? A better opportunity came. One that aligned with who I was and what I believed in. And then another. And another. Because when you clear out the things that don't serve you, you make room for the things that do. Nature abhors a vacuum. When you remove toxicity from your life, that space doesn't stay empty. It gets filled with better things, better people, better opportunities. But you have to create the space first. You have to be willing to let go of what's not working to make room for what will. And I'm not going to lie to you and say it happens overnight. Sometimes you walk away and it's hard for a long time. Sometimes why? Doubt yourself. Sometimes you miss what you left. Sometimes you wonder if you made the right choice. That's normal. That's human. That's part of the process. But here's what I can promise you. If you stay true to yourself, if you keep choosing yourself, if you keep walking toward your worth instead of away from it, you will look back one day and be so grateful that you had the courage to leave. You will meet people who celebrate you instead of tolerate you. You will find love that feels like coming home instead of going to war. You will discover parts of yourself you had forgotten existed. You will build a life that feels authentic instead of performative. You will experience joy that isn't conditional on someone else's mood. You will know peace that doesn't require you to betray yourself, but it starts with walking away. It starts with recognizing these 5 phrases for what they are. Warning signs, red flags, deal breakers. You're too sensitive is a red flag. You'll never find anyone better than me is a red flag. If you really loved me, you would is a red flag. You're lucky I'm not like other guys is a red flag. You couldn't survive without me is a red flag. And when you see red flags, you don't try to paint them a different color. You don't make excuses for them. You don't convince yourself they're not that bad. You acknowledge them. You honor them. You walk away. I want to speak directly to those of you who are in situations like this right now. Those of you who have heard these phrases. Those of you who are feeling that knot in your stomach because this is hitting too close to home. Those of you who are making excuses in your head for why your situation is different, I see you. I was you. And I'm telling you with every ounce of my being that you deserve better. You deserve so much better. And the fact that you're listening to this right now, the fact that something inside you resonate. With this message, that's your soul telling you that you already know what you need to do. Trust that voice, that whisper inside you that's been trying to tell you something is wrong. That feeling in your gut that something isn't right. That exhaustion you feel from constantly defending someone's behavior to yourself and others. That sadness that's become so familiar, you've forgotten what genuine happiness feels like. Trust it. Trust yourself. And I know you're scared. I know you're thinking about all the logistics. Where will I go? What will I do? What will people think? How will I survive? I know, because I've thought all those same things. But here's what I need you to understand. You don't need to have all the answers before you leave. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to know exactly how everything will work out. You just need to take the first step. And then the next one. And then the next one. When I left situations that weren't serving me, I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have guarantees. I just had faith. Faith in myself. Faith. Ish in the universe. Faith that things would work out. Because I was choosing myself, and that decision, that fundamental choice to honor my own worth, would guide me in the right direction. And it did. Every single time. Not in the ways I expected. Not on the timeline I wanted. But it did. You know what's amazing about hitting rock bottom? You find out what you're made of. You discover strengths you didn't know you had. You develop resilience that no one can take from you. You learn that you are so much more capable than you ever gave yourself credit for. The diamond is formed under pressure. The lotus grows from mud. The phoenix rises from ashes. And you will rise from this, stronger, wiser, more yourself than you've ever been. But you have to do the hard thing first. You have to walk away. And I want to talk about what comes after. Because walking away is step 1. But rebuilding is the journey. And it's not always linear. Some days you'll feel invincible. Some days you'll feel broken. Some days you'll question everything. Some days you'll be so certain you made the right choice. All of that is okay. All of that is part of healing. Give yourself grace. Give yourself time. Give yourself permission to feel everything you need to feel without judgment. You don't have to be strong every day. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. What you do need to do is keep choosing yourself. Every single day, in big ways and small ways. Choose yourself when you're tempted to go back. Choose yourself when you're feeling lonely. Choose yourself when doubt creeps in. Choose yourself when it would be easier to settle. Choose yourself like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. And as you rebuild, you'll start to remember who you were before. Or maybe you'll discover who you were always meant to be. You'll reconnect with passions you abandoned. You'll rekindle friendships you neglected. You'll rediscover dreams you had put on hold. You'll reclaim parts of yourself you had given away, and slowly, piece by piece, day by day, you'll create a life that feels like yours. A life that reflects your values, your dreams, your worth. A life where you don't have to shrink or hide or apologize for being who you are. A life where you're not walking on eggshells but dancing under stars.